everybody. Thank you for joining the Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective for this Tuesday morning. I'm Robert Theobald, the Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services here at the Arizona Commerce Authority. And we're excited to have you here today for this bootcamp session. I want to first start by thanking all of our community partners. We cannot do these boot camps without them. We've got a great community partner on today, and we're excited to hear his topic. So Small Business Bootcamp is designed to help small businesses work through the COVID crisis and return stronger than ever. It is a statewide initiative supported by our community partners, and we're going to continue the boot camp through December and into the new year with great content and great tools and resources. So the Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective website, azcommerce.com/small business bootcamp. On that website, that's the same one you used to register for this session. You can find the upcoming sessions as well as all the previous sessions. At the bottom of that web page, you'll find our archive, and it lists all of the previous sessions we've done. They're recorded. All the resources that were provided by that presenter are also available on there. So you can go back and review the tools, review the presentation, or if you missed one, go back and watch it for the first time. Additionally, on that website, you'll find a link to the Resource Collective. And the Resource Collective are the tools and resources provided by our community partners to help small businesses return to business from the COVID shutdowns and work through the COVID crisis with a number of different topics. This list right here is just a sample of the different things that are available on the Resource Collective. There's unemployment insurance guides, restaurant guides, guidance for barbershops and cosmetologists, safe retail, construction safety, manufacturing information, covering a number of different industries and businesses. So take a look at those resources that are available to everyone. Some quick updates too that we have. These are just four of the grants that are still going on right now that actually end at the application period ends at the end of October. So you've got the Florence Returning Stronger Grant Program, the Phoenix Rise Micro Business Grant that's being managed through LISC. Got the link there. Then the Tempe Small Business Grant Program and the Surprise Small Business Relief Grant. These programs, you can also find them on our Small Business Resources website, our Arizona Business Resources website, azcommerce.com/COVID-19. We list all the different grants that are available at the local, county, and state level, and some of the federal ones as well. And we constantly update those lists as we get more information about the different grants. Also want to share quickly a reminder about some of the programs that the ACA provides for small business owners out there, or small business services. We can help support navigating through the SBA, working with the SBDC, connecting with SCORE, local banking contacts, etc. Our workforce division can help small businesses that are looking to hire with their hiring process, and also with training and upskilling of their employees. And then our Arizona MEP, our Manufacturing Extension Partnership, they work with manufacturers, small to medium-sized manufacturers, to help them grow and achieve their results that they're looking for. Additionally, in this time, we have a lot of people looking to start new businesses, start side gigs. And we have our small business checklist, and it's an online interactive resource to help people understand the licensing, registration, and compliance requirements when starting a business. There's also information on business planning, development, and procurement, and marketing opportunities. It's a very detailed checklist program to help you understand the needs for starting a business. We also want to quickly share a reminder for the ArizonaTogether.org website is the state's COVID-19 information and resource webpage. Great tool. And with that, we want to look at today's topics, or this week's topics. We've got maintaining relevancy with your customers during COVID-19 today. And on Thursday, we have the Leader of You by the Performance Group of Arizona. So we're excited about both sessions. So with that, today we have Brett Gilliland. He's a co-founder and CEO of Elite Entrepreneurs. And maybe Brett has been with us before on a previous session. We're excited to have him back. So Brett, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and let you take over.
All right. Well, I appreciate that introduction, Robert, and the opportunity to be session number 90. I am impressed at how many resources the ACA has brought to the businesses of Arizona, and I'm just excited to be here again. Thank you. Name is Brett Gilliland. There's a hard G on the front end of that. It's hard enough to say as it is, but I thought I'd give you another shot at that. So Brett Gilliland, Elite Entrepreneurs is my business. We help seven-figure businesses specifically. Today's content will be relevant to any business, okay? So don't sit there and think, well, I don't have $1 million business yet. No problem. But just so you know who we are, $1 million to $10 million journey, we know that better than anybody else. And so we help people from all around the world with their seven-figure businesses. Today's topic about maintaining relevance in the eyes of your customers is applicable to every business, regardless of size. To prove that, we'll start off with a little walk down memory lane. All of us can relate to what happened in March. Beginning mid to late March, something changed called COVID-19, and that shook things up in the world. That turned many of our worlds upside down completely. But just don't even think about your business for a second. Just think about your own life. There was so much uncertainty that went up as events started shutting down, travel started stopping, gatherings of people went away almost overnight, right? And so the entire population was going into this mode of, I don't know what's going to happen. And as a result, we saw a lot of people do this with their finances, right? They wrapped their arms right around those funds, those resources, and brought them right close into them and said, I need to wait and see where I need to spend my precious pennies. And so buyers, whether that's in business or consumers, buyers began to scrutinize every penny of spend. And for many of our businesses, that meant some cancellations. If we had memberships or subscription-based businesses, it meant some cancellations. I know in my business, we lost about 30% of our customers, right, in the snap of a finger. It just went away. And this began to happen, where anybody who had control over the money was waiting to see what was going to happen. They wanted to see, do I need to run to the store and buy toilet paper and water, right? Which is what a lot of people did. And for my business, I'm going to cut back everything that I see as non-essential. And so buyers began to scrutinize every single penny. And I think that was across the board. So that doesn't matter what stage of business that you're at. Here's another concept that says this doesn't matter what stage of business that you're at. We are going to learn today from fly fishing, okay? Now, I want you to pull up your chat box and let me know if you've ever been fly fishing, okay? And it doesn't matter if you haven't, you're still going to learn the lessons today. Don't worry about that. If you can't stand the idea of fishing, no problem. You're still going to get the lessons. But we're gonna talk about fly fishing. So if you could pull up your chat box and let me know if you've ever been fly fishing, okay? That would help me a lot. So let me see if I get anybody's responses coming in. I don't see anybody yet. Oh, thank you. We've got some brave souls chiming in. By the way, you are going to get more out of this if you participate. So Robert, thank you for leading the way. Janine, I appreciate you commenting. I've watched somebody else before is great. And so I've done both. I have fly fished and I've watched people because I'm intrigued by it. It's a very interesting activity. If you like fishing, it's super fun. Again, whether or not you have done any fly fishing, I think you're going to love the lessons today on relevance and how to maintain that with your customers. So thank you, Janine, for pulling up that chat box. Robert, Lisa, thank you for participating. Anybody else who really wants to get something out of this, pull up that chat box, get ready to participate. Okay, active learning is going to be the best for you here today. All right, so relevance lessons from fly fishing. Here are the lessons, okay? Go to where the fish are, select the right fly, present an irresistible offer. So we're going to go through each one of these things as it relates to fly fishing really quickly, and then we're going to circle back and say, what does this have to do with my business? All right? So you go to the fish. That's number one. You go to where the fish are. Now I have some very elementary pictures on here, but you can see the concept here in these two diagrams. The one in the top right is in the spring. That's the spawning season. And so the fish are moving up into the shallower waters for spawning. During the winter, the shallower waters are cold. It might even be frozen. Now, it's hard for me to say that here in Phoenix because that doesn't really happen here in Phoenix. But in other places, the water actually freezes there at the top, and the fish go deeper to find warmer water. So if you're fishing in the winter, you have to know where the fish are. You've got to go to them. If you're fishing in the spring, you know where they're going to be in the spring. So that's the concept of going to the fish. Every fly fisherman or fly fisher woman knows that that's job number one. Find where the fish are. Second thing you do as a fly fisher person is you select the right fly. And I put do your homework on here. I love to fish. I grew up fishing. I didn't grow up fly fishing though. So I was introduced to fly fishing later in life. And I took a little class, a fly fishing class. And we went down to the river and I was excited to throw out there and start fishing. But the instructor taught us very well that you never tie a fly on your line before you get to the river. You don't get ready ahead of time and just go out and do what you've done before that it's worked. You go to the river and you start to study around the river. And so you take a little seining net, which is like a very tight-knit net, and you put it down in the water and you let some water pass through it. And as you lift it up, you see what kinds of insect life is in the net. You also turn over some rocks and you see what's on the rocks. So you're studying what is in the water right now, what the fish are feeding on now, and then you select your fly. Okay? If you've ever seen a fly box, there's tons of different types of flies. Some float on the water. They're called dry flies. Some go underneath the water. There are things called nymphs or midges, and they are basically mimicking the insect pattern of emerging from the water until they come off the top as a fly. And there are different stages of these insects, and you have to learn what's going on in the water. So you've got to do your homework to know what flies you're going to put in front of those fish. So that's number two. So number one was go where the fish are. Number two was choose your fly, right? Select which fly. And you do that by doing your homework. Okay, number three on fly fishing is called presentation. That's the actual term. If you want to present the fly in the most natural way possible to the fish. If it looks like it's defying the laws of nature, as you're putting your fly out there and dragging it across the current in an unnatural pattern, the fish, they can see that, they suspect that. But if you put it on there and it floats down naturally like any of the other bugs, then you're creating an irresistible offer for the fish. And I have a couple pictures there of fish that are surfacing for a dry fly, one that's at the top of the water. And the other pictures are diagrams about how you float your fly down the current in the most natural way possible. All right, and that's called presentation. So in the first 10 minutes of our time together, you learned everything you need to know about fly fishing, which you might say, well, what does that have to do with my business? So now let's go back through those lessons with the lens of your business and the topic of today, which is relevance. How do we maintain relevance? How do we crank up relevance for our customers during a time when they're being very selective as to where they spend their money? Okay, so let's apply those lessons. We're going to go to where the fish are, select the right fly, and present an irresistible offer. Same steps, but now we're going to talk about them in terms of our businesses. So where are your fish hanging out? Okay. And how would you know? If you don't mind, pull up the chat box and type in for me one of the best ways you can think of. Be creative, because other people on this chat will get ideas from you and you'll get ideas from them. What are some ways that you can figure out where the fish are? Where are your customers hanging out? Okay, I put some ideas here. Like, they might be on Facebook or LinkedIn. They might be in Google search. They might be going to certain podcasts or certain blogs or certain online articles. They might be showing up at networking events. At some point that starts to happen again, right? What virtual events are they attending? Are there certain partner channels where they're hanging out? Where are they? Okay. Now, I don't want you to pull up the chat and just type in one of these things. I want you to pull up the chat box and give an idea for how you might find out where they are hanging out. Okay, I gave some possible clues for where they might be hanging out, but how might you find them? Okay, I have somebody responding. Thank you, Janine. Mobile data, that is a great one. May or may not apply to other businesses here, but for some businesses, that mobile data will tell you where your customers are hanging out. That's a great one. Where else can we go to learn where the fish are, where our customers are hanging out? Because when I go to the river, if I go fishing, if I go to the same spot every time because I've caught fish there before, what am I likely to miss? If the fish have moved up the river even 10 or 20 yards, I'll be fishing where they're not. If they've moved down the river 10 or 20 yards, I'll be fishing where they're not. And that's the pattern we get into in our businesses. We go, this is the way we've always done it. We've always found them here. And I'm telling you, COVID was disruptive enough that where those customers are hanging out, where you might find them, is different in many cases. Not every case, but it is different in many cases. So we have to go where they are. Janine, love your response. Thank you for participating. Does anybody else have any ideas as to where we might look for clues about where your customers are hanging out? No. Okay, really, folks, pull up the chat box. If you engage, you're going to get more out of this, okay? You don't have to be nervous. We're not going to unmute your line. We're just looking for a little interaction so that you can get something out of this and others can get something out of this as well. I see something in the Q&A, which I appreciate. If we're business-to-business companies and we use SIC codes, SIC codes for our customers, how do we refine our search strategy so that we can skate to where the puck is going? Love that question, David. That's another clue about where those customers might be hanging out. You know certain SIC codes for them, SIC codes. How do you refine your search? So one of the best differences between fishing and the topic of today, which really has to do with customers and maintaining relevance with our customers, is that we can actually talk to the customers. I didn't hear anybody say that yet. So what I would do in that case with the Q&A is go to the customers that you've had in the past, especially some of your best customers, the ones that fit your ideal customer, and ask them what behavior patterns have shifted for them. Maybe they used to go check out LinkedIn. Maybe now during COVID, they're looking to a specific thought leader, right? Maybe they're going to a specific online publication like Inc. magazine or Entrepreneur or Forbes. Maybe they're subscribing to a specific newsletter. You can ask your best avatar customers, your target customers, where they are going for information, where are they going to connect with others. And we can't always ask the fish those questions. So we have an advantage here that we can actually ask the customers. So I love the mobile data ideas. You can look at any sort of purchasing pattern or behavior, but we can actually go ask the customers as well. And I would ask some of your best past customers, and I would ask even those that you weren't able to land before, but you still have their contact info, and say, where are you going right now? This is a difficult time. Where are you going for information? What are your favorite sources? So you can see where people are gathering, okay? So great question. And I think Robert may have also thrown an answer in there as well. All right, awesome. So we need to go where the fish are, and any information we can get through others, right? There are information gathering entities out there. The ACA might have great information that I don't know about. If Robert or Lisa or somebody wants to throw in the chat, I know there were tons of resources that Robert reviewed, but specific to this question, are there places in the ACA set of resources that are focused on trends or spending patterns or where small businesses are gathering, right? Or where your customers might be gathering. So really important for us to think about, before I can be relevant to them, I have to know where they are so that I can put my relevant thing in front of them. Okay, so the next thing we do after we know where the fish are hanging out is to crank up that relevance. This is where we selected the fly, right? On the river, we would turn over rocks. We would use the little seining net to find out what insects are moving through the water. What do the fish have available to them right now? Because that is what is relevant. If you put something out that doesn't match what they're looking for, then that's a problem. Okay, so let's talk about this. What pains are your customers solving for? Well, their pains shifted, okay? At least potentially their pains shifted when COVID happened, and we're still in this kind of new place. And their reality, whether it's completely settled or not, is starting to take on a new shape. And so what was most important to them in the past may be less important to them now. And so our job is to go figure out, what is it that the customer is looking for? Now, if you were expert at tying a certain type of fly, and in the past that fly would kill it every time you went to the river. Let's talk about the Salt River, since that's here in Arizona, or the Verde River or the Colorado. Like, we have a few rivers. If you went to your favorite spot and you had a fly that worked over and over and over again, and then something changed in the ecosystem, like completely changed, that fly, that favorite fly that always caught fish, may be completely irrelevant. And so we can't say to ourselves, but this has always worked. This thing has always been needed. This thing has always been useful for my customers. Always isn't anymore. Like, we have to look at it differently. So we have to go figure out, where are they hurting? What are they looking for? And thank you, Robert, for adding in the chat box the sizeuparizona.com is a good tool for understanding where things are moving. But we have to understand our customers better than we've ever understood before. What are they going through right now? And so that might require you to spend, I don't know, 5 hours a week. Maybe it's 1 hour a day, just having conversations with people, really digging in. Where are your pain points? And oh, by the way, if you can start asking the question, how can we serve you? They'll start to tell you what's relevant to them. And we can't get stuck on, we can't go into there saying, hey, I still have that fly, that same one that you always liked. I have it again. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Are you ready for it yet? That's not the way to be relevant to our customers. We have to go back. We have to listen to them. We have to observe, and then we have to go back and maybe tie a completely different fly, maybe one we've never tied before, right? We've got to change the product or the service to match what their current need is. And I'll give a couple of examples of that here in a little bit, but I can't stress that point enough. What worked before may not be working now and may not work in the future. And if you're still waiting for things to change or things to get back to normal so that that old fly pattern will work again, that day may never come. So we have to go find out, what is their biggest pain point? What is the pressing need? What are they reaching for that would really make their life better right now? And if you ask the question, how can we best serve you? They'll give you great feedback. And then you can adjust. And some of those adjustments will be minor tweaks. It might just be a different color thread on your fly. And it might be a completely different pattern, completely different size, right? Like it could be completely different. Again, I'll show you an example of that here in a minute. All right. You were relevant at some point. Your product or offering was perfectly relevant. And then the environment changed. And what was super relevant before may be completely irrelevant now. So we have to be relevant, or else we don't get some of those precious pennies that our customers are still kind of holding on to those, saying, I'm not sure that I'm ready to spend at the same levels as I was last year. So I need to make more cautious buying decisions. And as they're doing that, you have to crank up your relevance compared to not just your competitors, but now everything else that they're spending money on, right? The table stakes went way up for playing in this game at all. Okay, so number 2 was to crank up the relevance. We've got to find out where the customers are, but now we're selecting the fly. What is the product? What is the service that best meets them where they are today? Okay, that is relevant to them. All right, number 3. We've got to present an irresistible offer. Even if you have the most relevant thing, you know it in your gut. You're like, I know this is the thing they need. If you don't present it in a way that helps them, pry their tight grip on their money, on those purse strings, if you don't help them loosen that grip and see that they absolutely have to have what you're offering, that's not irresistible enough. So when we're fishing on the river, if we don't present that thing beautifully, floating down the river very naturally, they don't see it as natural. They just see it like being dragged across the current or unnaturally being pulled upstream, which would never happen with a fly in real life. Then they're going, this doesn't even make sense to me. That kind of approach needs to be taken as we consider how to present our irresistible offer to our customer, our very relevant offer to our customer. Okay, so I put some great tips for you here. Stacking value. The base offer has to be perfectly relevant. But then if you want to make it more irresistible, you add some bonuses on top of that. That might be value add. Now they don't have to cost a lot to you, but they have to help that person make that decision. So we're going to stack value, increase urgency. We're going to have things like expiring offers, or maybe the bonuses are going to go away at the end of the week, right? So maybe the base offer is perfectly relevant, perfectly priced. And then we say, well, if you act by, this time, there's going to be more for you. There's bonus. Then there's creating a scarcity. Sometimes you can say, we can only afford to sell 10 of these at this price, or we only have 10 of these available. Like they're going to be gone when they're gone. So you can use a combination of urgency and scarcity to help the irresistibility factor go up. And then we want to make it really easy to buy. If you put something in front of them and they can't grab onto it very easily, like it's too clunky, the purchase process is too painful, there's too many steps, it's too hard, then any resistance, any friction in the buying process, you've got to eliminate those things at a time when people are being very choiceful with how they spend. And then finally, if you can eliminate risk altogether, certainly reduce the risk, but if you can, eliminate it. All right. So for example, we had, well, let me rewind. I'll take that back. Okay. Any questions? So I just shared with you 3 key things. Finding customers. We did a little Q&A around that. I had one question. Then there was the relevant thing. How do we make our offering very relevant? And then we said, how do we make it, we present it in an irresistible way? What questions do you all have? You can use the Q&A function in Zoom, or you can use the chat box. Ask questions about the relevance piece or presenting an irresistible offer if you have any, okay? And I'm going to go to my next screen while you come up with any questions. Okay, because I want to show you how this can happen. Now, this is an example from Timberlane. Okay, they do custom exterior shutters and shutter hardware. At least up until March they did. COVID hit. They had this emergency, right? Like many of us did, where their product or service wasn't deemed relevant right now to their customers. People weren't going out and buying custom exterior shutters and shutter hardware at the beginning of the pandemic. Now, I know later on in the pandemic, people started to do some home improvement types of things, and maybe that part of their business picked up a little bit. But I'm guessing it still hasn't fully recovered. But what they did is say, you know what? We know how to manufacture goods. We have a good supply chain to both get the raw materials and then get our products out to customers. So they had some core competencies, but their offering wasn't relevant to the customers at that point in time. And so they said, how could we retie the fly? How could we make an adjustment that would make customers buy things from us, that would keep us relevant? And so they pivoted really hard, like really hard. They went from shutters to manufacturing personal protective equipment. Okay, we've all seen these shields. That's what they made. They also made some of those shields, like if you go to the pharmacy or some other place of business where there's going to be some customer interaction, they started making those shields. So they started to make personal protective equipment. By doing that, they were able to keep from laying off all of their people. They were able to keep their revenue up high enough to maintain their operations, stay in business. So where their business was completely at risk early in the pandemic, they found out what was relevant to customers. They made a pivot and they went. Even though shutters and personal protective equipment have zero in common, other than the manufacturer has to take some raw materials or some goods and assemble them and get them shipped out, right? Like they had core competencies that were relevant and did apply to a new customer need, but those two products are completely different. Okay. Now you may not want to go in a completely different direction, but let me give one more example. We have a customer in our community. We have an elite entrepreneurs community, and her name is Tammy Weiler, and her business is called Singles Travel International. And I was telling some of our panelists ahead of this call about Tammy, and so I decided I would go ahead and share her story. So Singles Travel International has been around for 27 years. She knows her business. She had relevance for her customers for 27 years. Now, her customers are a specific group. They're people who are single and who are 50 and older. Okay, so singles in their 50s and older. And she would organize her team. She had a business, a $2 million business. Her team would organize cruise trips. Okay, so they didn't have the whole boat, obviously, but when there were cruises, they would organize trips to certain destinations. And now singles who wanted to get out and see the world and get to know other people who are 50 and older could be in a safe environment, in a group where there was organized activities and a tour guide and a better price. Because guess what? When you go to secure a cabin on a cruise, you're paying for as though there are two people. Okay? Cabin and the pricing around that are designed for couples. Well, if you're single, you don't want to pay a full couple price because you're alone. And that doesn't seem right to pay a full price, right? And so they would secure special deals for their singles and go organize these trips. So the pricing was better and they were safe because they were in groups and they were connecting with other singles and they were seeing parts of the world that they've always wanted to see. Super relevant. Well, guess what happened in COVID? No cruises, like no cruises. Early on, there was a few kind of lingering, but then they went away. In fact, they're just now starting to come back, and they're only kind of coming back, right? They've announced cruises, and then they'll still get canceled. And so she's been playing this dance for 6 months where she could wait for the environment to perfectly match back up to the old one where she could run her business again at the same level. But she can't afford to do that. All of the revenue dried up, and the money is running out, right? It has run out. And so she had to make a change. So here's what she did. She and her team got together and said, how can we be relevant? What is most relevant to our customers? Well, travel was not relevant anymore. Customers may have wanted to do that, but they certainly weren't willing to get on planes. They weren't willing to get on cruises. Even if those things were made available, the travel dropped off dramatically. And so what was still relevant is that those singles who are 50 and older were still interested in connecting with other singles. They were still interested in socializing, especially during the pandemic, because these singles were isolated, like all of us were. They were alone and lonely, and they had no connection with people. And so Tammy and her team pivoted. They said, wait a minute, our customers are not in the same place. They're not looking for the same thing. What can we give them? And so they created a membership site called singlelife.today. And if you go to singlelife.today, you'll see that there's a place now created for singles who are 50 and older to get together and connect with one another. Now, instead of travel, although they're still doing some travel virtually, they're saying, hey, let's all go to Greece. And their tour guides are getting on there and they're showing pictures and they're giving tours. So they're still doing some travel virtually, but they are connecting over education. Things like retirement planning, things like how to create better relationships with people, things like how to care for my pet. So they're connecting around content now. They're connecting around some fun activities virtually, but they are still offering relevance to their customers. That's important, okay? So they went from trips to a membership site, a community, a very active, facilitated community where relevance is still very high. So that's how they did their pivot. Let me take you to another slide with a few more examples. So all of the people on this slide, with the exception of our company, Lead Entrepreneurs, but everybody else either has been or is a customer of ours, okay? And they all had in-person events or in-person education. Breathe Education up here is an Australian company. They teach Pilates instructors. So they basically teach people how to teach Pilates to others. And they have a great business, multi-million-dollar business. But they did all of that teaching in person. So as soon as COVID hit, their revenue was going to go away, right? So they quickly moved completely online. Now their business is bigger than it ever has been. They've opened up who they can serve, but they went to where their customers are. And they changed their offerings to be relevant to the current conditions and the current customer needs. And now their sales are the highest they've ever been. That's pretty cool. I'm not going to go through each one of these individually like that, but let me tell you, Brooklyn Music Factory is in Brooklyn, New York, and they do music lessons. Think about piano teachers and students coming together at their physical location. Come to the music factory where you get your music lessons. All kinds of instruments, okay? Band instruments, orchestra instruments, every kind of instrument. They had teachers and students coming together and learning the lessons, and they would have jam sessions where they're doing live music together. Anyway, similar situation where people couldn't get together anymore. Now they've taken all of their offerings online, and they've realized, hey, we can actually grow bigger online than the one physical location that we had in Brooklyn. And so their business is growing as a result of making the transition. So here's what I want to say to all of you thinking, well, I don't have a business that can easily go online. You're missing the point. These are just obvious examples of how people have pivoted. But the point is, the fish did not go away. They didn't go away, okay? The fish did not disappear. The fish are still there. They were just a lot more selective about what they would take. And maybe they moved to a different location in the water. So your job is to understand where they moved to, understand exactly what they're looking for right now, and create the perfect presentation for them so that you can be completely, absolutely, 100% relevant to them right now. That's the trick. And all of these companies pivoted from live interactions to online, either events or teaching of some sort to an online experience. So for us, let me go back to these things, because I want to paint a picture for you. So for us, if you're between 1 million and 10 million in revenue, we would have 2-day in-person experiences. We called it Elite Forum. Doesn't matter what it's called, but a 2-day intensive workshop where we delivered to you the elite business growth method. We taught you everything you need to know to build a 7-figure business that wasn't going to kill you as the business owner. And if you wanted to grow it, was scalable, like all the people, processes, and systems, the leadership, the strategy, execution. There's a whole elite business growth method. And we would teach it over 2 days. And we would have people come in from all over the world, 10 to 12 companies, and they would pay $10,000 to be part of this. Think about that as a marketing challenge for you. You have a high ticket item. You go to meet somebody, a prospect. You say, "Hey, nice to meet you. I know we can help you. It's $10,000, right?" Like, it was so time. 2 days, they would fly here, get hotels, super expensive. Now, over 12, 18 months, some of these businesses were doubling. Some would even triple with it in 24 months. So it was well worth it. They were getting huge ROI on their $10,000 investment, but it was still hard to say, "Nice to meet you. The first thing we have for you is $10,000. Well, COVID hit, that went away, right? All of our revenue, the entry level revenue anyway, went away. And we couldn't have 2-day events. So what we did was say, all right, what was once $10,000, 2 days in person, is now a 2-hour Zoom meeting once a week over 4 weeks. So we adjusted the offer. And now people can not only get that, but we increased some urgency, and we said, "Hey, if you buy by the end of the week, then we're going to give you these added bonuses." And we stacked value on there. We added like 4 different bonuses. We put the dollar amount that those bonuses were worth. We were really showing them, you're getting more for your spend. And these were bonuses that we could deliver without a bunch of additional expense. So they were not difficult for us to deliver, but they were very valuable. And they showed the customer, hey, if you buy this normal base offering that is still relevant to you, you're going to get all these other things. And then we said, hey, there's scarcity to this, because in reality, we can only have 8 to 10 companies at a time in a cohort. And so anytime we sell a cohort, we only have so many seats. And so there's some scarcity built in. Then we made it really easy to buy. And we said, you know what? You don't have to pay. By the way, we took the $10,000 price tag and we said, that's a barrier right now. We made it $3,000. And you might say to yourself, wow, you're killing yourself on the price. But what we could only do once a quarter in 2-day events before, now we could do once a month. And so we could afford to bring in fewer people once a month at a lower price point and still have more people over time. And so that really worked for us. But we made it easy to buy. We said, hey, look, it's $299 to secure your seat. So it's not $10,000 to secure your seat. It's not $3,000. It's $299 to secure your seat. Really easy online purchasing process. And then we eliminated the risk. We said, look, come to the first couple calls. If it's not for you, just hit the eject button and we'll give you your money back. Okay? So in the process of doing that, we went from March losing a third of our customers to in September having more customers than we've had in the last 2 years, literally. So we learned how to present an irresistible offer that was extremely relevant to our customers during the pandemic. Now, I know my business model is different than yours, but the lessons are still there to be had. You can do this for any type of business. And if you're telling me, well, you know, my business is travel, like it's cruises, I can't do that. Well, Tammy Weiler's doing it. She's created a whole nother business to pivot, right? And the Timberlane company went from shutters to protective equipment, like completely different business. So I'm sorry, I do this out of love. If you're telling yourself this doesn't apply to me, you're wrong. Okay, I need you to hear that. If you're telling yourself this doesn't apply to me, you're wrong. And you deserve to be in a place where you're not just scraping by. You can be completely relevant to your customers right now, but you have to change the way you're doing things. If you're not relevant today, you're not getting the sales you need today, the fish are still out there. There's still money. The money didn't disappear. The spending went down, but the money didn't disappear. We have to go figure out how to go be super relevant to our customers so that they are happy to be spending with us. And I have multiple customers telling me right now, September was our best month ever. Q3 was our best quarter ever, not just during the pandemic, ever, because they've learned the lesson of relevance, and they're emerging stronger than before. I love that Robert talked about that. The whole purpose behind the ACA is to provide you, or not the ACA, but these boot camps and many of the services and the resources they're giving is to help you emerge stronger. And I'm telling you, this relevance concept is right at the core for every business to figure out to be able to emerge stronger. And I'm seeing it in my own business. I'm seeing it in several of my customers telling me this is the best month, the best quarter I've ever had. Okay. And if you're not in that space, it can change, and you can make a change starting now. All right. So we went through these examples. I don't want you to get skunked. If you don't know that relevance, every person who loves fishing knows this reference. Okay. The reference is when you go and fish and you fish and you fish and you fish and you don't catch any. That's getting skunked. You guys are hard workers. Nobody's spent less time working. Everybody's hustling. But if you're not really bringing in all the cats that you want to bring in, got to crank up the relevance. It is possible. You can do it. All right. Not everybody fits in this category. I completely understand that. But if you are a seven-figure business, we are seven-figure business experts, elite entrepreneurs. That's all we do. We don't do the pre-1 million journey. If you're fast approaching $1 million, I think it's still relevant for you. But if you're in the 1 to 10 million range, or you know somebody that is, we know that space better than anybody else. We know how to help you build a business that is the business that you always dreamed of if you're in that space. All right, if you want to learn more about what we do, you can go to our website. growwithelite.com is down here in the bottom left-hand corner that I just covered up with the awesome Zoom bar. But there's an ebook there called The Elite Business Growth Method. And even if you're not a seven-figure business, if you want to learn the Elite Business Growth Method, you're welcome to download it. It's free. Of course, we're going to get your email address and follow up with you. But you just fill it out and you get the ebook, you get all the information, and away you go. So I would love to be of service to you if you're a seven-figure business. If not, I wish you really well. We're not ideal to help you, but the concepts that I've shared with you, I hope will be really, really helpful as you try to emerge stronger than before from this pandemic. So we have some time for Q&A. Robert, however you want to manage this. I just have enjoyed sharing some ideas with you today.
All right. Thank you, Brett. That was an awesome presentation. I really got a lot out of it. I appreciate that. Folks, we do have Q&A time, so post up your questions in the Q&A box or in the chat. And while we're waiting for you to throw some in there, I do have a fishing story that involves both fly fishing and regular fishing in the same story. One of my side things that I like to do is I'm a freelance journalist, and I was out working on an adventure story in southern Utah with some friends. And a key part of the story was our adventures in fishing. And there's three of us, and one friend is the fisherman. He catches the fish, and I usually catch the shots in the story, and then the other friend catches a nap while we're doing our stuff. But we were on this river in southern Utah, and we had stopped at a store on the way to the river, and I talked to the person about what the best spinner is for that river, because I was not fly fishing. I was just reel fishing. And so I got the recommended spinner to use for that area. We got out there. My other buddy was fly fishing, and he was doing all the research, and he was looking at the insects floating around, and he was trying different ones, trying different methods, and initially wasn't having success. And I'm out there with my spinner, tossing it in and reeling it back in. And after about 10 minutes and a bunch of casts, I was done. I wasn't catching anything, and I was done. I was that business that just had something they were throwing out in the pond and closed up within a few months, because it was a nice shiny object, but I wasn't doing it the right way. But yet my buddy, who was fly fishing and did the research and spent the time and hit the right ties within the 2 hours that we were there, he caught 11 fish. And he likes to catch and release, so I don't know if he caught the same fish over again, but he may have gotten some repeat business based on his methods. And I really liked how you tied the fly fishing into business, because we see that, that research is important, that trying different things and understanding your customer and where they're at and what they're doing is incredibly important. So thank you for sharing that information in a great way.
Yeah, you're welcome. And for those of you who haven't tried fly fishing, I highly recommend it. If you ever want to pick up a hobby, it's a little addictive, but especially as business people now, you'll never look at it the same. Fishing is all about fishing and getting customers. Same exact thing, really. You got to figure out where they're at. You got to pick what's relevant to them and then present it in just the right irresistible way. That's how you catch fish. That's how you get customers, but only every time, right? You can get lucky, and we could try old methods. It's not like Robert would never catch a fish with the spinning lure, but if you want to catch fish predictably, you do it the way that we talked about today. That's customers or fish, right? But yeah, love the analogy. Thank you for letting me share it.
Excellent. Well, it looks like we don't have any questions in the chat or in the Q&A. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. The presentation, Brett's presentation, and the slide deck will be available on our website later today. So feel free to check back if you want to watch it again, or recommend it to a friend, have them go to our website and be able to review it. But it was a great presentation. Again, I hope everybody can get something from it. Go out, talk to some customers, find out where they're meeting, what they're feeding on, and create that relevant product, that relevant offering, so you can start gaining those customers back and increase your business. Again, Brett, thank you for the presentation. And,
yeah, it was really fun for me. I always like talking about fishing, but I love business and helping Arizona businesses. And I threw my email in the chat box in case somebody wants to follow up. Even if you're not a seven-figure business, I'm happy to talk to you about things you're trying to do or ideas that I might have for your business. So feel free to reach out.
Excellent. Thank you, Brett. Thank you all for attending this session. We look forward to seeing you all on Thursday at 9 a.m. for our next boot camp seminar. But until then, have a great day and a great week. Thanks.